Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this video where we are going to take a look at the Army Special Rules now that 3.5 is out of beta and is official. Those last 2 months have been quite an experience. For those of you who, surf the wave with me, you remember at the start, stuff was getting changed almost daily. I even made a list for a game once that I had that evening, and by the time I got to the store to play the game, the list was no longer viable. And some folks, that really kind of turned them off. I know a few that just said, I'm not going to play until the beta's over. And while that kind of sucks because it meant 2 months without any gaming, I absolutely understand why they did that. But it's done. It's over. We're going to take a look now and see where did the chips fall for each particular army. I'll give my 2 bits. Please down in the comments put your 2 bits. This is entirely subjective. As I said lots before on this channel, I'm not an expert. I'm not a champion gamer. I'm not some kind of hyper-competitive tournament player. I just look at the rule and ask myself, could I see how I want to use this? Does this seem to me to be, an effective rule? Does it give the army a really nice flavor that makes it unique and really enjoyable to play? So let's dive in and take a look and see what we got. This video, we're going to look specifically at the Grimdark Future rules, and in a different video, we'll take a look at Age of Fantasy. All right, so here we are at the Army home page. Let's start off, of course, top to bottom. So, Alien Hives, what did they get? So their new one, Hive Bond, +1 to morale test rolls. So I have talked to someone who does play a lot of Alien Hives, and they really like this. To me, the morale, I don't know, I can definitely see where it has its uses, because there are some armies like this one where you have lots of low-quality, chaff units, and so it's very easy to shake or stun them in melee or in shooting. So I get that. But for some reason, it just seems like that kind of a benefit to an army. It feels like getting second place. Like, it's still an accomplishment, but it's not the greatest accomplishment, and so you feel a little bit let down. I don't know. I always like it when the rule makes them hit harder, makes them tougher, makes them faster. It's just the morale. Maybe it's just because for so long, in 40K, for example, morale meant nothing. And then in OPR, for the most part, I played armies with really high quality, and so again, morale meant nothing. So I'm guessing this is just my own personal issue here. But one thing I do think will happen here is with higher morale, I wonder if you'll start to see more big monsters being played. Because yes, let's say you take, a squad down here of these assault grunts. You need 10 of them, relatively cheap, quality 5, so morale tests are now quality 4. That's still a 50-50 chance of failing. And if you kill 7 grunts in your shooting and then they pass morale, okay, yay, they're still active. There's only 3 of them. They're not that big of a threat. Whereas now if you take big monsters and you do a lot of damage to them, you knock them below half, but they have, say, a quality 4, which means with the roll here they become a 3. Now there's a better chance that they'll stay on the table. And unless you play the degrading rules, the brutal damage I think it's called, a monster is as dangerous on 1 wound as it was on 10. So that's where I see Hive Bond really coming into effect and being the most useful. All right. So moving on to Battle Brothers. This will take a bit because there's the whole gamut. So Battleborn. If a unit where all models have this rule is shaken at the beginning of the round, roll 1 die. On a 4+, it stops being shaken. I think this one it's an interesting rule. It's really good. I play Kings of War occasionally, and I play Dwarves, and they have something similar to this, where if you have a unit that when you activate it is shaken or wavered or whatever the phrase is, there's a chance it will unwaver, and then you just activate. I think this is big. The 50-50 chance might seem like, a little bit harsh, but otherwise, if you don't have that, an army that can never be shaken, that's pretty darn strong. So this was one army that I know went through changes so frequently because it's a popular army. So I do think this is a good special rule, because if you also notice right next to it, you have Fearless. So to try and shake Battle Brothers. First, they have to fail a typically quality 3 save, which is unlikely. Then they get Fearless, so a 50-50 chance to then pass again. And then when you activate them again, a 50-50 chance to unshake. So basically what they've done is they've made the Battle Brothers almost unshakable. It's very, very rare that you will shake them. So I think that's a pretty powerful ability. And the fact that you have a chance here with Battleborn to, when you activate at the beginning of the round, is, oh, I thought it was when you activate them. That's even better. At the start of the round, all of your guys have a chance to unshake. So that just made it better. I misread it. I thought it said that when you activate the unit, there's a chance it'll unshake, and then you can activate it normally. And if not, you can still use, Last Stand or Hunker Down or whatever it is. So I think that's a very, very powerful special rule. Blood Brothers. What do we have for these gentlemen? Unmodified 6, you get an extra attack. This is one that didn't change that much. I think this is what it was for almost the entire beta, and it's good. The Blood Brothers are meant to be a very, aggressive, very attacky type army, and so 6 being an extra attack, that's pretty strong. It's not as good as what some other armies get, where a 6 to hit is an automatic hit, but that may have been a little too good. I don't know, but this is solid. Moving on to the Dark Brothers. What did they end up with? Darkborn. Oh, they got the +3 range and +3 charge. This one makes them, I think, pretty darn strong because they have really good shooting and really good melee. They're high quality, they're a tough army, and so giving them that little extra 3 inches of range means they can outshoot armies now that do predominantly shooting. So I think it's good. I don't know if I would say it's better than the +1 to hit. Oh, I'm sorry, but like the Blood Brothers, where it's a 6 gives you an extra attack roll. But I could definitely see this one being useful. Let's see who's next here. The Night Brothers. I don't think these ever change. This is one of the armies that gets the 6-up ignore wounds. Nightborn. Yeah. So on a 6-up, when you take a wound on a 6-up, it's ignored. And if it's from a spell, it's ignored on a 4+. That has changed from it used to be on a 2+, you ignored from a spell. But 2 of the armies I played, Night Brothers and Robot Legion, they were armies that already had army special rules, and oddly enough, they had the same one. But yeah, the Night Brothers weren't going to change very much because they already had a rule, and it worked pretty well. Moving on to the Watch Brothers. These ones, if I recall, they got... Oh, this one has changed. Okay, when this unit's activated, pick one effect. Until the end of the activation, all models get +1 AP or +1 to hit. So, I play Chaos, and there are some individual units, I play Havoc, and there are some units that get this, but the whole army, every round, either gets +1 AP or +1 to hit. That's pretty strong, given that most of the army's quality 3. So your whole army now can be quality 2, with weapons that typically already have AP, or you can stick with a quality 3, which is still pretty darn good, and now your basic weapons are AP 2. This is very powerful. So Watch Brothers may have just suddenly become a very viable group. Now, they are in smaller units, though. Units of 3, so that might be what balances them out. So maybe consider building an army of one type of Battle Brothers and bringing like a specialist detachment or, some reinforcements from these guys. But that is a very, very strong balance. Moving on to the last, the Wolf Brothers. This is another army that had several changes, but they were always about movement. Let's see. When this unit is activated, you may place the models with this rule anywhere fully within 3 inches of their position. So when I first read that, I thought, so they get an extra 3-inch movement. It's not. It's more than that. It's you may just place them. So if you're on the side of impassable terrain, you can basically blink to the other side of it and then move. Or if you come up to a river that's difficult terrain, rather than having to wade through it, you blink across it and then you move. So this is actually a very, very strong rule. And one other thing that makes it really good, very fluffy, given that the Wolf Brothers are supposed to be melee monsters. For those of you who are familiar with the advanced rules, you can only heavy charge, and that's +1 to your melee rolls. You can only heavy charge if you're between 6 and 3 inches. So if you're more than 6 inches away, you can't get it. But if you're closer than 3 inches, you can't get it. And that's significant because when you fight a melee and you don't destroy your enemy, you back up 1 inch. So it's impossible for you to charge in and keep heavy charging over and over and over. With this rule, when you have a unit that's in melee, that's 1 inch away from your opponent, you can blink to 3 inches away and then you can heavy charge, which means Wolf Brothers get to heavy charge every single time after the first. So that is incredibly powerful. Once these guys get in melee, you're pretty toast. So it's good. It'll be difficult to get there. If you can keep the Wolf Brothers at arm's length, you'll be okay. But otherwise, they're going to mess you up. All right, so that is all of the Blood Brothers. Let's move on to the Sisters. I think this is another one that didn't really change. It stayed the devout rule. What changed was just the range at which it was effective. So let's see what we got here. Unmodified results of 6, deal 1 extra hit. So this is an example of what I was talking about where the Blood Brothers, they get an extra attack on a 6, whereas the Sisters get an extra hit on a 6. And throughout the beta, they would add, if you fight over 9 inches away, 12 inches away, whatever. This one is just gone. When you attack, shooting or melee, a 6 explodes. So that the Sisters got better. Their rule didn't change, but it got better, if that makes any sense. Let's move on to the Custodians. I played one game of Custodians when they had one of the rules being tested, and it was too much. So let's see what we got here. Guardian. When a unit where all models have this rule are shot or charged from over 9 inches away and take hits, those count as having AP -1. That was what I had when I played. So I played a buddy down from the local game store. He played the Blood Brothers. I think throughout the whole game, he removed a total of like 2 models. He could not hurt me because the Custodians have a 2+ defense. They ignore the first AP based on this rule until you get close. But once you get close enough to do that, they're just going to charge you and butcher you. And then the fact that Custodians are tough 3. It is darn near impossible to kill them. So, I mean, it's a very good rule for an army that was already very, very strong. The key to defeating Custodians is to just outmaneuver them. Because the armies for Custodians are going to be very, very small, very low unit count, you can try and swamp and take all the objectives, and they just don't have the number of units to counter that. You can't take them up going toe to. You can't take them on going toe to toe. All right, DAO. This is one that I played a lot during the beta because their new rule made them amazing. So when this model shoots over 9 inches away, it gets +1 to hit. The entire DAO Union is now basically 3+ to hit because you have quality 5, good shot usually adds 1, and then targeting visor adds 1 again. And I found these gun drones here, if you give them some hero support here and a few of their upgrades, these gun drones are absolutely devastating. I put a grunt leader with them. I gave them relentless. I gave them regeneration, and I gave one other thing I don't recall off the top of my head. These guys were deleting units. For those of you who watched the bat rep where I played DAO Union against Prime Brothers, and the gun drones were just doing the Lord's work. It was unbelievable. So, really, really good rule for them. Dark Elf Raiders. This one didn't change much either. Yeah, they may move by up to 3 inches after shooting or being in melee. So kind of like the Wolf Brothers, not as good because you don't get to do it before movement. It's after you've shot or after you've been in melee, you get a free 3-inch move, but that 3 inches will still be subject to things like impassable terrain. So it's not as good. Although it does still give you the ability to shoot and duck behind cover, to fight in melee and then back up. So next round you're in a position to heavy charge. But since you have to do the attacking first, it's not as good as the Wolf Brothers who get to move and then decide what they're going to do. So it's okay, you know? Dwarf Guilds. I imagine this one hasn't changed much either. Sturdy, there it is. When units are shot or charged from over 9 inches away, they get +1 defense rolls. This was what it has been pretty much throughout. And it's good. You know, it's nice and solid. It makes the dwarves a little more hardy, a little more difficult to kill, but it certainly doesn't break them. Elven Jesters. Now this is, I've always been tempted to play this. It's a highly elite army. So what do we have here? Rapid Blink, I believe. because everybody has evasive and rapid blink, but I'm pretty sure it's rapid blink. So when this unit's activated, okay, so it's the same rule as the Wolf Brothers. Very bouncy. You know, if you ever see the mask when he's bouncing all over the room, that's what I picture the Jesters looking like. So again, it makes them fast, so they can get into combat faster or get into range of shooting faster, but more importantly, it allows them to heavy charge over and over and over and over, or to blink within 3 inches of position, and then they can focus fire. So while it looks kind of weak, you get an extra 3 inches of movement, it can be used to great effect. Now the question is what happens when you have Wolf Brothers and Jesters, fighting each other and just bouncing all over the place like Tigger. Okay. Eternal Dynasty. Where did they end up with? Clan Warrior. Did we want to use that term? For each unmodified roll of 6, +1 attack with that weapon. This rule doesn't apply to newly generated attacks. Okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. I don't know if they need to add the with that weapon, because usually you don't roll multiples with the same. As long as the unit or the weapon has the same AP and damage, and it doesn't really matter. So I don't know if they needed the wording, probably somewhere. But okay, same thing as the Blood Brothers. It's good, it's useful. It's not as good as, say, the Sisters that just get an extra hit on 6s. But, so it's not bad. Now, here's the question for you, because this is the kind of thing that I just have never been good at figuring out. Why did this army get a 6 is an extra attack, whereas the Sisters got a 6 is an extra hit? Same thing with the Orcs. A 6 is an automatic hit. Would that have broken this army, and why doesn't that break armies like the Orcs or like the Sisters? Right? That's the kind of thing that I can notice the difference, but I can't see why it works the way it does, which is why I don't do competitive play. Goblin Reclaimers. What do these guys get here? Mischievous, sorry. When attacking, targets must reroll unmodified defense rolls of 6. Okay, so the old poison, or part of the old poison rule. That's pretty good for an entire army. Because if you're attacking something like other goblins, like Human Defense Force, anything with bad defense, and you hit them with AP 1 or 2 where they have to roll 6s to save, and then you tell them, well, if you roll it, you're going to have to reroll again. It's not going to do much good against really strong armies, tough ones like Prime Brothers, Custodians, Dwarves. But on the whole, it's a strong rule, and it's interesting because it doesn't affect you. It affects the other player. So this could be kind of fun. It encourages you to really swamp your opponent in shots or in high AP to force them to get to a 6 to save, and then they have to reroll it if they get it. Okay, Havoc Brothers. Now, these are my boys, and my goodness, they changed so much. There were some days I was euphoric, and other days when I looked at the rule and thought that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But they ended up in a place that made me happy. So, when they shoot over 9 inches away, or when they charge AP +1, that makes them, I think, very strong. Not broken, but very strong. I would bring, for example, a unit of destroyers with the energy claws, and a unit of destroyers with energy claws that's almost 10 attacks. And with this, it's at AP1 with rending. I mean, those guys can absolutely shred things to pieces. So it made them very good. As they're moving forward to attack, they get the plus AP1, and then they charge in at the last minute, they get it again. It's really good. Some of the other stuff that the Havoc got, I thought was meh. They were allowed to try out the Ignore Shaken on a 4+. There was one for a time where if they were shaken, they basically got a free last stand, and then at the end of it, they could unshake. It was a little weird. But this was one group that was all over the place, but I'm quite happy where they landed. So let's see what else. Change. Most of the demonic benefits here for the change gods, or I'm sorry, for the Havoc gods, those didn't change much. So this one is still -1 to hit over 9 inches away, so it's basically stealth, but with a different name, so you could stack stealth on top of that. Lust, if I recall, this was speed. Yep, +1 to advance and +3 when using rush or charge. So it's kind of a weaker version of fast. But if you have fast, like some of these do, so like for example down here, Mutated Lust Brothers, they're already fast, so they add 2 to advance and 4 to charge, and then this they had 1 to advance and 3 to charge, so they advance 9 inches, and then they charge, 19? That's insane. Then we have the Plague Disciples, and this one is still the 6-up ignore. Yeah, when they take a wound on a 6+, it is ignored. So it's identical to self-repair, and it's almost identical to the Knight Brothers, but the Knight Brothers get that benefit that if it's from a spell, it's then ignored on a 4+. So it is interesting to see how some of these rules are very similar to the ones others get, but those others get a little something extra. And so what I wonder when I see that is, okay, so how is that balanced? Like, not an accusation, but how does the army balance the fact that their special rule is just flat out better? Does that mean that the Knight Brothers, for example, are a couple points more? I don't know. This is probably why I never create my own game. I would just go in circles. War Disciples. What do we have here? Warbound. Oh, yeah. Shred. When enemies block your hits, they take an extra wound for every one. That one's pretty strong as well. I mean, I would take this over the reroll 6s to save. Because rerolling 6, there's a chance they might still roll a save. Whereas if they roll a 1, not only do they fail, but they automatically take another one. This one's pretty powerful. And it also doesn't matter what your opponent's defense is. So this would be a good counter, for example, something like the Custodians. Rather than trying to bust through a 2+ defense and AP, you just drown them in dice. And every time they roll a 1, they take 2 damage, which means technically the Custodian brothers only have 2 wounds apiece instead of 3, because you're going to have to. They need to roll 2 ones in order to fail instead of 3. So I think this is pretty strong. If any of you watched the game I did with Giants with Tom, and also I think the one with Nick, that some of the Giants you could put this on them. And when I had a giant with 18 attacks, that could get pretty nasty with the number of ones that could be rolled on that many dice. Okay, moving on to the High Elf fleets. Highborn. They basically have a weaker version of Fast. And it's interesting. Comparing it to the Lustborn or Lustbound, the Lust Havoc got +1 to advance and 3 to rush and charge. These guys get 2 and 2. So, okay. It's a little different, but they're fast. Which can be good. If you do a melee-focused army, they're going to be very quickly in there. If you're shooting, maybe not as much. So I'm not sure. Looking at this, given that, let's see what we have for core units. We have shooters, we have melee, we have shooters, we have shooters. I'm not sure this is as strong as it could be to what I know. And again, I haven't played many high elves in Grimdark Future. This seems like a army-wide rule that you're not going to use much. If you have a shooting-focused army, you're not going to use it much at all. Yeah, you'll use it to run forward and grab objectives or maybe back up out of range of your opponent, but if you're a shooting army, you're going to try and avoid those positions anyways. So, I don't know. This one seems to be kind of on the bottom for me. Okay, Human Defense Force. Now, this one also had a number of changes. So they ended up back where they started, +1 to morale. And again, I already explained why with Alien Hives, why for me personally, the morale thing just doesn't seem to do very much. Although recently, for example, I played a game last night with my Robot Legion, and I failed morale constantly, even with units that had a 3+ quality. So maybe it would be better, but I don't know. This one seems kind of meh. The problem with the Defense Force is they're not very good shooting. 50-50 most of the time. I've pointed this out before. Very few, in fact, none of their leaders have a quality 3 to start. Although some of them you can improve it with officers giving the orders or the abilities that improve shooting. But this is an army that relies on shooting for a lot, and yet they're not very good at it. So why the Human Defense Force didn't get something like, for example, the DAO, +1 to hit when shooting at over a range, I don't understand. it seems one of the games I played, I didn't record it, but the guy I was playing with mentioned that for a very short period, Hold the Line gave units +1 defense if they were within so many inches of another HDF unit. I thought that one was a lot more narrative, like the idea Hold the Line. You have this massive line, it's like a phalanx. No one wants to drop out of line to hold it, and therefore they're stronger on the defense. And even by doing that, look, they go from a defense 5 to defense 4. Like, that's not going to make them broken. So I thought that was a better rule than the morale. But if any of you play HDF and can really see where this morale can be really, really good, let me know, because for the most part, I don't think it's that great. Okay, Human Inquisition. Inquisitorial Agent. They get to activate twice. This one's really good. Once per game, so it's limited, but every unit has it. And so you get one of these assassins, and you get to use it twice in one particular round. That's pretty strong. So I like it. It's very narrative that the Inquisitorial Agents, they're like super special forces, and so they act. It's like everyone acts as 2 regular soldiers. Very fluffy. I like it. The only downside is I thought of playing an army of these guys, and you look at them, they're pretty, I don't know, bland. It's just tons and tons of different kinds of infantry. They get 1 vehicle and 1 APC. There's not a lot otherwise. So I don't know. I think it might balance that they don't have a lot of variety in what they can take, but what they can take gets to act as double. So I think that's kind of cool. All right, Infected Colonies. These ones I don't think changed. Oh, maybe they did. Enemies that roll to block hits take 1 extra wound for each unmodified result of 1. I believe that changed. I might be thinking of this wrong, but I thought for a while Infected Colonies had a 6-up ignore. Just like Plaguebound, just like Self-Repair, just like Aegis for Nightborn, sorry. So now it's if you roll a 1, I suppose that's fluffy. Like if these guys are infected and they cause a wound to you, the wound festers and gets infected, and that's why a 1 to save does extra damage. So fluffy. I like it. And it also makes it strong. It's a good rule. Then Jackals. I can't even remember what these guys had initially. Scrapper. When attacking, targets must re-roll defense rolls of 6 when blocking. Okay, so it's another rule that some of the other armies have. This is another question that I've been thinking of as I've been looking at these. OPR said what they wanted was to make sure every army had a unique special rule, and yet a lot of the armies share them. So it seems that there were attempts to make them different, like the High Elves versus the Lustbound, where one moves faster one way but not the other. But still, in the end, it's faster. So I always wonder what was the thought process when you have 2 or 3 armies that have to reroll 6s, or 2 or 3 armies that 1 does extra damage, or 2 or 3 armies that are +1 to hit, or 2 or 3 armies that are +1 to morale. Was that intentional, or, well, obviously, why didn't they change it a bit? If the High Elves and the Lustborn got the same general speed advance, but they tweaked it a bit so they weren't the same, why not something like that here? I don't know. All right, next up is the Machine Cult. And the Machine Cult, what do they have? Machine Fog? That sounds like they're getting old. When units, when units where all models have this rule, a shot or charge from 9, so it's stealth. Fancy that. I just talked about armies having the same rule. This is the same as Changebound. So there was nothing to add to the Machine Cult that would still be Machine Culty, but not just a copy of something else? I don't know. It seems you could have. Every army could have something distinct. Now, granted, when you have as many armies as this, it's hard to come up with unique things that aren't just lame. But still, the other thing, now that I think about it, is with the edition 3.5, one thing OPR said was they wanted to get away from armies that had all these different names for the same rule, or the, what are they called, the clone rules, or, the duplicates. Well, that's exactly what this is. Machine Fog and Changebound, it's the same rule as Stealth. So you have 3 names for the same rule. And I thought they were trying to get away from that. Orc Marauders. These guys ended where they started. Ferocious. 6s to hit, deal 1 automatic hit, which I think is fantastic. That's exactly what you would picture for orcs, that they're very strong, very aggressive, savagery of their attack, that kind of thing. So this is what it began with, and it's great. Shooting, melee, it's fantastic. As long as you can get them across the board without getting shot to pieces. But it's a good rule. It's also the same as Devout, but All right, Prime Brothers, this will be interesting. I believe the specialists like Blood Prime and Wolf Prime and Night Prime copy the others. We'll double check just to make sure. But they get... Okay, so it's identical to Battle Brothers. They've kept them the same. I know at some different points in the beta that Battle Brothers got one thing and Prime Brothers got something else, but in the end, they all get the same. So that's why some people have said, why not just combine the two and make the Prime the elite branch of the Battle Brothers instead of their own separate army book? But, it is what it is. So let's just quickly check a couple of these. So Blood was 6, gets an extra attack, and that's the same thing. Check one more just to confirm, but I'm pretty sure same. Wolf, do they get the 3-inch blink? Yes, they do, because it's the same rule. Wolfborn. All right, so nothing new under the sun there. Ratmen. I have yet to see a Ratmen army on the board. I really have. Scurry. Move 2 when advancing and 2 when rushing charging. So they're high elves. That's what they are. I don't know if that's going to do a lot. So you have, look at them. Quality 5, defense 5, quality 4, defense 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5. This is a very weak army, and they're very fast, which, matches. That's rats for you. Very quick, but they're not exactly, it's not like taking on a rhino. So, I suppose some of them, like the rat ogres or anything that's melee will definitely benefit from this, but otherwise, I don't know. I wouldn't be super excited. Seeing this rule would not make me want to play the rat ogres just to try it out. Let's put it that way. Rebel Guerrillas. Let's see. They may move by up to 3 after shooting or being in melee, so it's identical to the Dark Elves rule, which makes sense for Rebel Guerrillas. It's guerrilla warfare. Strike and fade, hit and run. That makes sense. Robot Legions. Again, like the Night Brothers, they didn't change much. You have self-repair. On a 6-up, you ignore wounds, although the Night Brothers get the +4 or the 4+ on against spells, where the Robot Legion doesn't get that. But I've been pretty happy with it. I was happy with it before. I'm glad Robot is gone. Even though last night I was playing Robot Legions and twice 2 of my units got shaken. And under Robot, they would have just lost models, but in the end, those units got blown up anyway, so it didn't really matter. Saurian Star Host. I'm going to have to learn these guys because I bought into Broken Truth. Primal. 6 is an extra attack, so this is the Blood Brothers rule. So I'm starting to notice there were like 6 or 7 rules, and then 2 armies got to share it. Soul Snatcher cults. Not to sound cynical, but which one do they get to copy? Fanatic. Here we have one that's totally different. After this model is deployed, it can be placed anywhere fully within 9 of its position. My question, does that stack with Scout? Look up here. Fanatic, fully placed within 9, and then after it's deployed, it can be deployed anywhere fully within 12. Do you get to stack that? Does this unit get to move 21 inches after you place it, or do you get to pick one, in which case Scout is totally useless? I don't know. Someone's going to have to FAQ that one, because I don't play these guys much. But, okay, so the whole army gets Scout. A weaker version of Scout. But at least it's something new, right? We haven't seen that yet. 2 left. Titan Lords and Wormhole Demons. So, Titan Lords. Honor Code. So it has changed a bit. Last time I watched or looked at this rule, it was delayed action, so they could force the other player to go. And it's been replaced now where if you're shaken on a 4-up, you stop being shaken. So that's pretty decent, because since Titans are so big and very difficult to kill, you go for trying to shake it. Although on a quality 3, It's not that likely. None of them have Fearless, though. So it's not like trying to shake Battle Brothers or Prime Brothers. So it's interesting that at the start of every round, basically, Titans are going to be good to the last drop. They're not going to shake very easily, and if they do, there's a 50-50 chance they'll unshake, and then you haven't gotten that benefit from them. So, okay, I almost would rather take the force the enemy to go, the delayed action, because one of the things I notice is when you play Titans, you have very few models, your opponent has lots, and so they get to do the chaff and force you to show your hand, and then they respond to it. Whereas when the Knights had delayed reaction, they could kind of counter that a bit. So, okay, it's not the best, but it's understandable. And then Wormhole Demons, I don't think there's a whole lot that we need to mention because they're going to be the same as Havoc. So, yep, there it is. Change bound, same old, same old. So there it is. 3.5 edition, out, solidified, carved in stone, concrete dried. What do you guys think? I thought some of them were good. Some have really powerful rules. The DAO made out really well. Some of the others that have, sixes explode to hit, those came out really well. Personally, I think many of the movement ones and the morale ones are the weaker of the two, although the blink, I think, is really, really strong if used properly. But what do you guys think? Did you come away from 3.5 happy with the armies that you play? Or did some of you, like me and my HDF, look at it and go, well, you're probably not going to see a lot of table time? Let me know down below, and I'll see you next time when we take a look at the Age of Fantasy army rules. So until then, keep your dice on the table.